She dated Gregory Peck in secret. Now we know the reason why. Ingrid Bergman was born on August 29, 1915, in Stockholm, Sweden. She experienced both deep tragedy and extraordinary triumph throughout her life. Losing her mother when she was only 3, and her father at the age of 13 left her orphaned at a young age. But even in her childhood years, Ingrid demonstrated a resilience and determination that would later define her career. She was drawn to the stage early on, inspired by her father's love of photography and the power of performance. It was this calling that led her to attend the prestigious Royal Dramatic Theatre School in Stockholm, where she trained under some of Sweden's finest instructors. Her European beginnings were modest, but her dreams and talent were anything but. Bergman's acting career first blossomed in Sweden, where she starred in films that quickly established her as a promising young actress with both beauty and depth. Unlike many screen stars of her era, she refused to be confined to glamorous, superficial roles. Instead, she sought out characters with emotional complexity, which allowed her to prove that her artistry went beyond her striking appearance. It was this commitment to authenticity that caught the attention of American producers. In 1939, she was invited to Hollywood to remake her Swedish hit Intermezzo in English, marking her American debut. Almost instantly, she captured the hearts of audiences and critics alike. What set her apart in Hollywood was her natural, understated style of acting, which stood in contrast to the more theatrical performances popular at the time. She became known not only for her ethereal beauty, but also for her truthfulness on screen, a quality that made her one of the most admired actresses of her generation. The 1940s became a golden decade for Bergman, as she took on roles that would etch her name into film history. Her performance in Casablanca, 1942, opposite Humphrey Bogart, remains one of cinema's most iconic pairings, with the film itself becoming a timeless classic. She later starred in Gaslight, 1944, which earned her the first of 3 Academy Awards, proving her range and depth as an actress. Other standout performances in Alfred Hitchcock's thrillers, Spellbound, 1945, and Notorious, 1946, further solidified her status as a leading lady with both mystery and grace. During this period, she became a symbol of Hollywood elegance, but also of international sophistication, embodying both glamour and emotional vulnerability in a way that audiences found irresistible. By the mid-1950s, Bergman staged one of the most remarkable comebacks in cinema history. Returning to Hollywood, she delivered a powerful performance in Anastasia, 1956, which earned her another Academy Award and restored her reputation as one of the great actresses of her time. From then on, she continued to balance international projects with American films, building a career that spanned continents, languages, and decades. Her versatility was unmatched, as she moved effortlessly from historical dramas to thrillers, from intimate character studies to grand epics. Later in life, she delivered a moving performance in Murder on the Orient Express, 1974, which earned her a 3rd Academy Award, proving that her artistry endured even as new generations of actresses emerged. One of her final triumphs was portraying the legendary Golda Meir in the television film A Woman Called Golda, 1982, for which she received both Emmy and Golden Globe Awards. Ingrid Bergman's personal life was often as dramatic and captivating as the film she starred in, and her 3 marriages reflected different phases of her life, career, and public image. Her first marriage was to Petter Aron Lindström, a Swedish dentist and later neurosurgeon whom she wed in 1937. At the time, Bergman was still in the early stages of her acting career in Sweden, and Lindström provided her with a sense of stability and normalcy in the midst of her rising fame. Together, they had a daughter, Pia Lindström, who was born in 1938. As Bergman's career expanded internationally and she moved into Hollywood films, her marriage to Lindström began to suffer from long separations, conflicting ambitions, and the overwhelming pressures of stardom. By the late 1940s, their relationship was deeply strained, and their differences became more apparent when Bergman began working abroad for long periods. Their marriage ultimately ended in divorce in 1950, a separation that coincided with one of the most controversial chapters of Bergman's personal life. Almost immediately after her divorce from Lindström, Bergman married Roberto Rossellini, the Italian film director with whom she had begun a highly publicized affair. Their relationship became a global scandal, largely because Bergman was not only married at the time, but also because she became pregnant before her divorce from Lindström was finalized. In conservative post-war America, this was considered shocking behavior, and Bergman faced harsh criticism, even being denounced on the floor of the U.S. Senate as a powerful influence for evil. Despite the backlash, Bergman and Rossellini married in 1950, embarking on both a professional and personal partnership. She starred in several of his films, including Stromboli, 1950, Europe 51, 1952, and Journey to Italy, 1954, which became landmarks of Italian neo-realism. The couple had 3 children together, son Renato, Roberto, Ronaldo, Giusto Giuseppe, Robin, and twin daughters, Isabella and Isotta, born in 1952. Their marriage, however, was often tumultuous. Rossellini's domineering nature, frequent infidelities, and the pressures of blending work with marriage led to growing discord. After 7 stormy years, their relationship collapsed, and they divorced in 1957. Bergman entered her 3rd marriage the following year when she wed Lars Schmidt, a Swedish theatrical producer who helped bring numerous stage productions to audiences across Europe and America. Married in 1958, their relationship was steadier than her previous unions, providing Bergman with companionship and support as she continued her career on stage and screen. Schmidt was deeply involved in the theater world and shared Bergman's passion for the performing arts, making him a partner who understood the demands of her profession. Their marriage lasted for 17 years, significantly longer than her previous ones, but eventually, they too grew apart. The couple divorced in 1975, though they reportedly remained on amicable terms after their separation. For many years, whispers surrounded Ingrid Bergman's personal life, especially during the golden age of her Hollywood career. Among the most intriguing rumors was her brief but passionate romance with Gregory Peck. Both were internationally adored stars, known for their talent, charisma, and the ability to bring unforgettable characters to life on the screen. Yet, what most people did not know at the time was that Ingrid and Gregory shared a secret relationship that was deliberately kept hidden from the public eye. It was not until much later that Bergman herself, in candid reflections, admitted that there had indeed been more than just professional respect between them. Bergman explained the delicate situation with an honesty that has since become part of her mystique. Gregory was one of the kindest men I had ever met, but we knew the world wasn't ready for us to be together, she once confessed. At the time, both stars were married, and Hollywood's rigid studio system made scandals nearly impossible to survive. Studios invested heavily in protecting the wholesome images of their stars, and any hint of impropriety could endanger careers. It was not a time when you could live openly. If the press had known, the consequences would have been terrible, she said. This simple but powerful statement reveals the weight of secrecy they had to carry while balancing their careers and reputations. The chemistry between Bergman and Peck first sparked during the filming of Spellbound, 1945, directed by Alfred Hitchcock. Their roles demanded an intimacy that blurred the line between acting and reality. We were drawn to each other in ways that felt completely natural, Bergman recalled. Sometimes the screen reflects what is happening in life, and with Gregory, the connection was undeniable. Their performances radiated authenticity, which audiences sensed, but only the two of them knew how much of that passion came from real emotion. Both Bergman and Peck were caught between duty and desire. Peck had a wife, Greta Kukkonen, whom he had married in 1942, and Bergman was married to Petter Lindström, with whom she had a young daughter, Pia. Their private lives created barriers that neither was prepared to destroy, despite the deep feelings they shared. Bergman later admitted, "There are moments in life when your heart wants to leap, but your conscience holds you back. Gregory and I made a choice, not because we didn't care, but because we cared too much about the consequences." This revelation shows how their affair was less about reckless passion and more about restrained longing, defined by the era's moral codes and personal responsibilities. The secrecy added an almost tragic beauty to their relationship. They would steal quiet moments on set, exchanging glances and conversations that carried more weight than words. "We laughed a lot together. Sometimes laughter was the only way to hide what we truly felt," Bergman said. Yet outside the confines of the studio, they returned to their roles as husband and wife in their respective households, keeping their emotions tightly under wraps. Looking back, Bergman reflected on how fleeting yet unforgettable that chapter of her life was. "Gregory will always have a special place in my heart," she confessed years later. "We could not continue, and perhaps that was for the best, but those days were filled with tenderness that I will never forget." Her words suggest a mix of wistfulness and acceptance, recognizing both the impossibility of their situation and the beauty of what they briefly shared. The secrecy surrounding their romance reveals much about Hollywood in the 1940s. Stars were expected to maintain images of perfection, and private desires often had to be buried beneath layers of control. For Bergman, who later faced scandal during her relationship with Italian director Roberto Rossellini, the hidden affair with Peck foreshadowed the struggles she would endure when choosing love over reputation. Yet in the case of Peck, the affair remained a quiet memory, locked away until she allowed a glimpse of truth to emerge. Ultimately, Ingrid Bergman and Gregory Peck's secret romance was never meant to last, but it adds a poignant dimension to both of their legacies. It was a story of two luminous stars whose lives briefly intertwined in a way that was as genuine as it was forbidden. The respect and affection they maintained for each other even after the affair ended speaks volumes about their bond. Bergman's candid remarks give us not scandal, but a human story of restraint, desire, and the complicated choices that come with fame. During the run of The Constant Wife in London in the early 1970s, Ingrid Bergman's life took a dramatic and devastating turn. At the height of her stage career and still beloved worldwide for her unforgettable performances in Casablanca, Gaslight, and countless others, Bergman made a discovery that would alter the course of her remaining years. She found a hard lump under her left breast. At first, she tried to remain calm, continuing her performances with her usual grace and professionalism. She did not want to alarm those around her or distract from the work, as she had always been a consummate professional who believed in carrying on despite personal difficulties. Yet she knew in her heart that the lump was not to be ignored. On the 15th of June, 1974, she entered a London clinic where the lump was surgically removed. For many of her admirers, the idea of their screen idol enduring such a serious medical procedure would have been unthinkable, but Bergman faced it with quiet courage, refusing to let her illness dictate her every move. Her ordeal, however, was far from over. While working on Ingmar Bergman's Autumn Sonata, the intense, emotionally grueling film that paired her with Liv Ullmann and gave the world one of her finest performances, she discovered yet another lump. This discovery was particularly poignant because Autumn Sonata dealt with themes of aging, mortality, and strained family relationships, issues that Bergman herself was confronting in her private life. Despite the physical and emotional toll, she flew back to London once again to undergo surgery. These were not easy years. The repeated battles with her illness were exhausting, but Ingrid Bergman refused to let cancer silence her artistry. Almost immediately afterward, she began rehearsals for the play Waters of the Moon in 1978. To many, it seemed remarkable that after so much pain and surgery, she was still able to bring her magnetism to the stage, but Bergman always saw acting as her calling. She once said that stepping onto the stage gave her strength, as if the spotlight itself could push back the darkness gathering in her private life. Despite the relentless progression of her disease, Bergman continued to take on challenging work. In 1981, when offered the opportunity to play Golda Meir, the former Prime Minister of Israel, she did not hesitate. The television miniseries A Woman Called Golda became one of her most admired late performances, not only because of the political and historical weight of the role, but also because Bergman herself embodied the same resilience, dignity, and fortitude as the woman she portrayed. By then, her illness was advanced, and she knew every day was a battle, but she insisted on completing the role, giving audiences one last glimpse of her brilliance. When the project was finished, Bergman finally allowed herself to step back. She retired quietly to her apartment in Cheney Gardens, London, a place that became her sanctuary as she underwent chemotherapy. Even in seclusion, she remained the subject of public fascination. Photographers gathered outside her building, camping on the pavement in the hope of capturing images of the legendary actress in her final days. Yet Bergman, ever conscious of her dignity, refrained from approaching the front window. She did not want her weakened state to become a spectacle. She wished to be remembered as the luminous woman who had captivated audiences for decades. Meanwhile, her illness continued to ravage her body. The cancer spread to her spine, collapsing her 12th vertebra, leaving her in constant pain. Her right lung ceased to function altogether, and only a small portion of her left lung remained usable. Breathing, moving, and even simple daily tasks became formidable challenges, but she faced them with the same quiet stoicism that had defined her life. Finally, on 29th of August 1982, at the stroke of midnight, Ingrid Bergman passed away in London. In a poignant twist of fate, her death occurred on her 67th birthday, as if her life had come full circle in a final, symbolic moment. The world mourned not only the loss of a great actress, but also the loss of a woman who had endured scandal, exile, triumph, and illness with unwavering grace. To her admirers, her death marked the end of an era. She had lived her life with intensity, with courage, and with the kind of dignity that ensured her legacy would endure long after her passing.